So you have some money and you have taste. But you're not on anybody's A-list, and Saturday night is the loneliest night of the week for you. So perhaps a luxury dive watch will help with that. A Rolex Submariner, an Omega Seamaster perhaps, maybe even a Breitling. But you know what? Yes, it was exactly those three. I saw all of those in your local cafe just the other day, which tells me just one thing. There's too many self-indulgent wieners walking around your city with too much bloody money. Now, if you had an Ulysse Nardin Marine Diver Chronometer, you wouldn't be a self-indulgent wiener. No. You'd be a connoisseur. Hi everyone and welcome to Shaluso, and if you recognize that intro, yes, I was paraphrasing Gone in 60 Seconds, a great scene with Nicolas Cage, who in fact also happens to wear a watch from the brand we're talking about today, which is Ulysse Nardin. He wore a Ulysse Nardin Astrolabium Galileo Galilei in the movie Face Off, another great movie. But let's talk about today's watch. But first I need to thank Timepiece 360 in Dubai for lending in today's watch. Make sure you check out their links in the description below. And today we're looking at the Ulysse Nardin Marine Diver. The first Omega Seamasters appeared in 1948, and the Rolex Submariner and Blancpain 50 Fathoms first appeared in 1953. But no current brand has more maritime history than Ulysse Nardin. In 1874, Ulysse Nardin received its first marine chronometry certificate, and since then it supplied navies and shipping companies in over 50 countries, including the US, UK, Russia, and Japan. But it wasn't until 2003 that Ulysse Nardin combined its marine chronometer history with a dive watch, the Marine Diver. You can instantly recognize the design of small seconds at 6 and power reserve at 12 o'clock. It's directly taken from the design of its marine chronometers, while the rubber and metal strap and the wave pattern on the bezel are inherited from the first generation of Marine Diver. This second generation was in production from 2014 to 2018, and it distinguishes itself with a metal insert on the bezel, wave pattern on the dial, sailboat on the caseback, and an upgrade to 300 meters of water resistance, up from the original 200 meters of the first generation. This 44mm steel watch shrinks on the wrist the moment you put it on. Visually, this is done through the stepped-out lugs and black-coated crown to break down the size of the watch at the extremities, but more so in the way that it hugs the wrist. The rubber diving strap with its metal inserts not only defines the watch as an Ulysse Nardin visually, but it also eliminates any strap flare caused from the seamless integration with the lugs, allowing it to wrap right around the shape of any wrist, making the watch both comfortable and more friendly to smaller wrists. Despite being a stainless steel case, both the metal inserts and the double deployant are made of titanium, making this 44 by 13.5mm dive watch feel much lighter than you'd expect, and making it a great everyday and weekend companion for everything short of formal wear and suits. There's very little compromise between style and substance with this watch. The symmetry of the subdials is not only aesthetically pleasing, but it makes the hours and minutes much more legible, and the power reserve is a genuinely useful feature for divers wanting to ensure they don't go underwater with an unwound watch. A useful function when you have 300 meters of water resistance. Both the power reserve indicator and small seconds are part of a proprietary Ulysse Nardin module mounted atop the chronometer certified ETA 2892, making the UN26 somewhat of a hybrid between an in-house and outsourced caliber. The 2892 offers 42 hours of power reserve and helps this dive watch maintain a relatively slim profile of only 13.5mm. And the inverted cyclops over the date isn't just a design cue either. The added height from the module meant the date window was further away from the sapphire, similar to the modular chronograph found in the Royal Oak offshore. As such, the same solution was employed to improve legibility of the date. In terms of both comfort and technical capacity, nearly every aesthetic design cue on the Marine Diver has either a functional benefit or reason behind it. If you close your eyes and think of a dive watch, most likely you're picturing something like the Rolex Submariner. Satin finish, steel bracelet, monochromatic bezel, crown guards, straight lines, you got the idea. What Ulysse Nardin has managed to do is still deliver a dive watch as good as any other on paper, but with a completely different design language that makes it more like a work of art than just a tool. The subtle wave pattern on the dial evokes the sea as it catches the light, and then it vanishes when it doesn't, creating a sensation of motion as it moves. There's an additional pattern on the strap evoking the deck of a boat before transitioning into the titanium inserts, proudly bearing the Ulysse Nardin logo. Even the lugs are stepped out, adding for a bit more depth as well as evoking the steps of a yacht. The bezel echoes the wave motif on the dial, and while it may not be relieved as it is with its predecessor or successor, it carries on the same notion of the ocean as the light hits the waves. And while the case is finished in all high polish, it doesn't steal the show or seem flashy, instead just forming part of a cocktail of finishes and textures that make up the look of the Marine Diver. Even the plaque on the side may not show how many were produced, but just knowing which one you have adds a sensation that this is a watch made in much smaller quantities than its competitors. And this is the true appeal of the Marine Diver. While Omega, Rolex, and Breitling will make tens if not hundreds of thousands of their divers, all with very similar and comparable traits and dimensions, the Ulysse Nardin provides a more exclusive and distinctive option, with more nautical history than the rest, and speaking volumes about the exceptional taste of its owners. So that's my thoughts on the Ulysse Nardin Marine Diver. And it was a great opportunity to get to know this watch and to get to know a brand that I think not enough people talk about, not enough people know about, which in my view is a little bit sad because it's a brand with a great history, and more importantly, they make some really, really good watches for really good value, both on the pre-owned and to a degree on the new market as well. So it's great getting this little introduction to it. But before I get too deep into that, we need to get straight to the 3 positives and negatives of this particular watch, the Ulysse Nardin Marine Diver. And the first thing I need to highlight is the ergonomics. So obviously, being a watch made in steel but not with a bracelet, it was gonna be light. But this is even lighter on the wrist because of the fact that it has the rubber strap, of course, but also those inserts on the strap are made in titanium, so they don't take up a lot of weight. And then also the clasp itself is titanium, which is a nice touch considering the watch is made in steel. Normally, if you buy a steel watch, you'll get a steel clasp and steel hardware. But Ulysse Nardin didn't cut costs, they gave you the titanium, which makes it extra light and extra strong. And those little bending metal parts make it very, very comfortable. It's very easy to adjust it onto your wrist. So it's another reason that this watch ends up being very, very comfortable, despite being a 44mm watch in steel. The second highlight is the bezel feel. Now this is, I think, the first time that I've actually highlighted that as a positive on a watch. Normally it's just sort of a detail that's there. But on the Ulysse Nardin Marine Diver, it really makes a difference. It feels perfectly precise, but also chunky, very, very solid. On a lot of bezels, you might overstep it or you might just fall short when you're turning it on the first go, but with this, you can get it exactly where you want to right away. It's an amazing sensation and definitely something that inspires a lot of confidence in the quality of the construction. And then the last thing, of course, I have to highlight is the distinctive look of this. What makes this stand apart from other dive watches in its class is exactly that. It stands out, it stands apart. It looks totally different to anything else that you see in the 300-meter dive watch category. That layout of having the power reserve and the small seconds, it's symmetrical so it looks nice and balanced, but also it stands out as a dial. And then you have the rest of the styling. You have the bezel that has its own unique knurling. You have the wave pattern that's on the dial as well. You have the inverted cyclops, the little touches of red that just give it a little bit more pop. The look of the strap itself with those metal inserts gives it, again, another more distinctive look. You have the little plaque on the side. There's so many little details that go into this watch to make it seem special and to make it seem different. They've really achieved something great, but without it looking ugly or overstyled, it still looks very classical. A lot of that comes down to the fact it's inspired from their older marine chronometers as well. It's a perfect mix, in my view, of materials and modern and classical design all rolled in to make something that looks different from anything else that it competes with, but that looks very solid and elegant. And definitely if you're after something different, this is probably the watch for you. But that being said, no watch is perfect, and of course this watch has its flaws too. And the first one is that, much like the Hublot Big Bang that I reviewed a few weeks ago, its design is beautiful, it's really, really cool, but it also does limit its versatility. And unlike the Big Bang, with that, you can wear it with a suit if you're really the type of person making a big statement, you really want to show off. With the Ulysse Nardin, it's not a show-off watch. So if you put it with a suit, it's just going to look out of place. So if your lifestyle or your work dictates that you have to wear a suit, or you have formal occasions that you have to attend, this will probably be a watch that's best suited as part of a collection instead of just being your only watch. Secondly is the bezel design. While it is still distinctive, if you look at the predecessor to the Marine Diver or its current successor, neither of them have inserts. Instead, what they do is they have relieved bezels, which gives a lot of depth to the bezel. On this one, it looked like either they were trying to meet with the times with what other brands were doing, or perhaps they were simply cutting costs, I don't know. It does have a little wave pattern on it, but it's just painted on. It's not relieved like it is on its successor or its predecessor. And then the last thing, and this is something relatively small, it's more something to be concerned about if you're buying it pre-owned, and that is that it is a cuttable strap. What that means is that to size it, you better hope that whoever's selling it to you has it with a full-length strap, because if it's already cut, you might not be able to have it fit to your wrist, or if you're cutting it yourself, even if it is full-length, you may overcut it and then you won't be able to wear your watch and you'll have to outlay a sizable amount of money to replace it. So perhaps not the biggest downside, but definitely something to be wary of when purchasing it. Make sure that it has a full-length strap, and also make sure that you have a professional cut it for you so you don't mess up as you do it. But in any case, a lot of those are small details that can be easily overlooked on what is a very cool and very distinctive watch. What this watch achieves is exactly what it's meant to. It's a tool watch diver, first and foremost. 300 meter water resistance, COSC certified, has the unidirectional bezel, it meets all the requirements. But also what it does is, while it may not be a statement watch like a Hublot, it does still tell a statement. It shows that you do have taste, you do have class, you're not someone who just buys the typical. And this is coming from someone who has a Seamaster 300. So definitely it's a very, very good watch and a very distinctive watch. And it says a lot about you in that you're not just gonna be going with the pack. You want something different, and it would be very unlikely that you run into someone else with the same watch as you. And as for the price of entry to this, that's probably one of the best parts. It is actually quite good value. So this particular generation of Marine Diver was discontinued in 2018. At that time, it retailed for $8,500 US. So it's only available as a pre-owned watch now. And on the pre-owned market, its prices range from anywhere from about $4,800 up to about $7,000 US. Most of the ones I found though, they hover around that sort of 5,000 mark. If you compare it to, for example, the current Ulysse Nardin Diver 42, which uses basically the same movement, although it's a Salida variant instead of the ETA 2892 in this, that for starters, if you're getting it on the strap, you're paying $5,800 US new. And that doesn't have the power reserve indicator or the small seconds. It's not a COSC certified chronometer. It doesn't have that distinctive look of the Ulysse Nardin Diver. And on the pre-owned market, you're looking also around lower end of 4,000 up to about 5,000-6,000 US as well. So you're not really saving much by getting that one pre-owned also because it's new. So you get a lot more value in getting the Marine Diver, and it is that definitive Ulysse Nardin Diver styling. And then if you compare it to something else, like let's say an Omega Planet Ocean, again, rubber strap, you're looking at a new price of 6,450 US and a pre-owned of about 4,200, again up to about 6,000. And that is gonna be much thicker. It does have 600 meters water resistance and a display case back in a more modern movement. But again, it's very typical. You'll probably see 10 of those for every one of these that you find. So it offers a lot of value compared to other watches in its class, but it still manages to be distinctive. It still looks like a much more expensive watch because also it's a much more exclusive watch. And it carries all these details on it that just add a lot of visual value and appeal to it. And it's from a brand that has tons of history. It may not have a completely in-house movement, though the module is an in-house movement by Ulysse Nardin, but it still has all that pedigree and history to it. And Ulysse Nardin has genuine history when it comes to marine chronometers. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think? If it was you and it was your money, would you get one of these? Would you go down the Rolex route? Would you go down the Omega route? What do you think about watches that are a lot more distinctive, that still match on quality and on technology, but that are off the beaten path? Or do you prefer going with the classics? I'd love to know in the comments below. And of course, another big thanks to Timepiece 360 in Dubai. Make sure you check out their selection. They do ship internationally. Their links are in the description below. And if you like this video, please do like it and share it. And if you want to keep seeing new watch content, make sure you subscribe to Shaluso as well. And if you want to see all of the pictures and infographics included in this video, then make sure you follow me on Instagram @Shaluso. In any case, thanks for watching this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.